Kierston Deal throws her first ever no-hitter on Tuesday night. How about that? Congrats, Kierston Deal, big time outing for her, and one that I think was very well needed for this softball team. And before anyone says, dude, come on, easy there. Yeah, nice performance at all, but it was against Tulsa. Well, I think that there's many reasons why this could pay some dividends down the road for this softball team, and we'll talk about that momentarily. But just want to give a little hand clap to OU softball on Tuesday night. Not a perfect performance. Still maybe not the best of what's yet to come for this team, or hopefully what's to come for this team. But a step in the right direction. Did anyone else feel like Tuesday night, like regardless of the opponent, and Tulsa's not a bad softball team, not a terrible softball team, but just still kind of felt better about things after Tuesday night? What you saw, you got the run rule in 6 innings, but I think that there was a lot of good to take away from that game, and let's talk about that. I will remind you, if you can, please like and subscribe to the channel. Share the channel as well. Going to talk a lot of OU softball, a lot of OU football, just a lot of OU athletics here on this channel. But let's start with KD, because you got to. Okay, now that was one of her finer outings of her career. And it comes at a very interesting point for her, because she hasn't pitched in the past 2 Big 12 series, because Kelly Maxwell got the start Sunday against BYU in a game that you had to win the series. She started the Sunday before against Texas in a game that you had to win the series. So I don't think that necessarily Patty had lost confidence in Kierston Deal, because her recent outings were pretty good. Like, her numbers actually are pretty good. I think it's more about Kelly Maxwell has just really kind of emerged as this team's ace and best option in the circle. But last night was important, because does that mentality shift a little bit? Not in terms of, is Kelly Maxwell your number one or not, but I think that this team right now is looking for a legitimate number 2 pitcher. I think that they're on the look for that. And we've talked all year long about the pitching depth, and I still do believe in the pitching depth. But Friday night against BYU, we talked about it. That was one of the poor efforts that we've seen from an OU softball team, in the circle included. So someone's got to step up and be your number 2 pitcher, when we get to the postseason. Could that be Nicole May? Got a ton of experience, right? She knows what it's like to pitch on that stage. Could it be Carly Keeney or Peyton Monticelli? Maybe it's Kierston Deal. And whereas Kierston hasn't pitched the last couple of Big 12 series, I would be surprised if that's the case this weekend against Houston. I think Patty probably took a step back last night after that win against Tulsa and said, okay, all right. She's waiting on it like the rest of us, right? Like, everyone's saying the right things. Everyone's saying the right words about how they have to bounce back. But I think Patty sees Kierston Deal's performance on Tuesday night and says, okay, you want to roll out there and throw 6 innings like that, throw your first career no-hitter? Let's start you in a game. I'd be very surprised if Kierston Deal doesn't start at least one game this weekend against Houston. Maybe that's Saturday, maybe that's Sunday, but I think you're going to see her in the circle starting. And now I think that, building off of Tuesday night, Kierston Deal has presented herself with a fantastic opportunity. An opportunity to be the number 2 pitcher, the opportunity to get the ball in even bigger situations, an opportunity to really assert herself in the circle weekend in, weekend out. Let's see what she does with it. And that'll be, to me, one of the more interesting storylines this weekend is, okay, you got Houston coming to town. I think Kierston will get an opportunity to start. What does she do with it? Because if she does a lot with it, if she goes out, and she didn't have to throw another no-hitter or anything like that, if she goes out and has another strong performance, then maybe at this time next week we're saying, yeah, it's starting to look like Kierston Deal is legitimately your number 2 arm, which would be big if this team could find that at this point in the season. So just like happy for her individually that she had that moment. And I still think that she's really good, and she's got really good stuff. Kierston Deal is a pitcher that really improved from the beginning of last year to the end of last year. Like, you saw her in some pretty big moments a year ago when that team won the national championship. Now they kind of rode Jordy Ball in the circle to a title. But Kierston Deal, kind of towards the tail end of the year, was getting put in bigger and bigger spots and performing well. And I think that it kind of feels like Kierston is about, she's not already there, like really on the verge of some of her best softball. And that's going to be a welcome sign to this pitching staff if that's the case. But what I love about last night is she didn't do it alone. Like, she had help. She had help defensively. Riley Boone makes an incredible play in right field. Would that ball have been fair? Would it have been foul? Would have been close. It may have hit the chalk line there. It may have been a fair ball. But she gets help defensively because Riley Boone makes a full extension grab in right field. And then a couple of innings later, Alyssa Brito at third base makes a full extension grab over there and makes a fantastic play. So when I kind of evaluate Tuesday night, it's all right, pretty happy overall. You know, it took them a couple of innings to get on the board, to get going offensively. But once they got going offensively, I think overall, I mean, it was a good night. It was a good night. You win 8-0 in a run rule win, and by no means am I ready to say that, all right, 8-0 win against Tulsa, this team, okay, they're back ready to win a national championship. Nah, not yet. I mean, we got to see a lot more consistency from this team, I think, before any of us are ready to say that again, Patty Gasso included. But Tuesday night was a good step in the right direction. Because like I said, everyone's been saying all the right things. Patty Gasso's been saying what needs to happen. Kinsey Hansen, Tiare Jennings, Alyssa Brito, everyone knows the situation. No one's denying that they need to play better softball. It's just been, okay, well, when is that going to happen? Is that going to happen? What needs to happen for this team to play better softball and get closer to its best softball? And Tuesday night was a step in the right direction. Again, we got to see more of it to say they've arrived. But I think overall, Tuesday night, you got to be happy. The defense was really good. The pitching was fantastic. Hitting, the only small complaint I could have is that it took them until, the third inning to get on the board. Okay, that's a very, very small complaint in a night really full of positives. But they didn't score until the third inning, and they still found a way to run rule. So, I mean, even with the small negative, I think there's a pretty big positive that comes with that because they got on the board, and then they really got on the board in bunches. Like, I love the fact that Sid Sanders, who at one point in the year looked like one of your better bats in the offense, hits a grand slam last night and hits a grand slam the other way to maybe the deepest part of the park. Like, she hammered that ball, and that ball got out in a hurry. I love that Sid Sanders had that moment last night, hitting that grand slam. That's big for her. Like, confidence coming back. Maybe she gets back to where she was a few weeks ago. That would be huge for this offense. Like, big moment here. And then, just the fact that it's the bottom of the sixth, you kind of look up and say, oh, if OU gets a hit right here, then this game is over. And that hit happened. And it wasn't just a cheap single or an error by Tulsa, and they just kind of gave the game away. That was a hard hit ball in the gap that easily scored the runner from second base to in. And we've just been accustomed to this program and really even this team, these players going back the past couple of years, they're just so clutch. Like, you give them an opportunity to end the game, they're going to do it. Whether it's a tie game, one-run game, on the verge of a run rule, it just feels like every time there's any sort of a pressure situation or a situation where you can end the game, this team's always going to take full advantage of that and get the big hit in the biggest moments. That doesn't necessarily seem like it had been the case over the course of the past couple of weeks. But last night you say, hey, ball game's over if you get a hit here. That's exactly what happened. Hard hit ball in the gap. So I think that there's, last night, there's a lot of really small, I don't even want to say small. There's just a lot of positive things to take away to say, okay, let's see how this develops here moving forward. Whether it's Kierston Deal's performance in the circle, Sid Sanders' home run, defensively what they had, that looked more of a complete performance. That looked more of what we expect from this team. Great. Acknowledge it. But let's see it consistently this weekend against Houston, right? Because what does it really mean if you have that great performance in OKC Hall of Fame Stadium in front of over 5,000 fans? But then you turn around this weekend and you look like you did Friday night against BYU, right? Like that's the challenge here. And I think everyone kind of knows the situation, but that's the challenge here moving forward. It's like, all right, you put a great game together, a really solid game together, and we're used to seeing this. Do it again on Friday. Do it again on Saturday. Do it again on Sunday. Make that the habit as we roll through the rest of the week. But Patty doesn't just throw out compliments just to throw out compliments. She said last night on Kierston Deal's performance, quote, couldn't get any better, really. Stellar, very good, exactly what we needed right now. Exactly what we needed right now. Just remember that. And I hope that Kierston Deal emerges as the number 2 threat, number 2 pitcher in the circle right now. And if she does, if we're in Oklahoma City for the Women's College World Series and talking about Kelly Maxwell's really good, she's the number 1, but Kierston Deal is a pretty solid option as well. Just remember that quote by Patty, exactly what we needed right now. And remember Tuesday night's game against Tulsa, because maybe that's kind of the moment that she needed, that KD needed to say, all right, here we go. Let's kick it into high gear here. And maybe it kicks the rest of the pitching staff into high gear as well. Maybe it causes a little bit more motivation for the pitchers behind her. Just a lot of good on Tuesday night. And they needed some good. They needed positive things to happen. I thought the approach at the plate was a lot better. Just kind of overall, things just looked and felt a lot better for OU softball on Tuesday night. And we'll wait and see what happens this weekend. Excited to see once again. We'll talk to you later this week. I'm Tyler McComas, Diamond NV Podcast.